Patch 14.1 will bring some crazy changes to TFT. Firstly, Annie is finally getting some long-awaited nerfs where she'll deal substantially less secondary damage. And there's numerous bug fixes like dilution where now his ult will properly scale up attack speed. But there's also 11 new portals that completely transform the way you play the game. There's also nerfs to plenty of units, but ones that stood out to me are the ones to Cassante and Garen. Are they because of me? However, this patch is far from perfect. For example, Ahri's only nerf is a reduction to her base attack speed. And there's other changes like the buffs to Emo and Executioner that are excessive, especially when you consider that they didn't nerf Vex. And with these insane buffs to Hyperpop, a comp around Lulu and Ahri has cropped up that is just so silly when you play it. But why is Lulu now broken around Hyperpop? What are the other portals coming in this patch? And what will the meta look like in 14.1? But before we get into that, remember to subscribe. Okay, so let's look at all the new portals first. As I mentioned, there's 11 new portals that I'll just go through now. There's Support Anvil, which will give you a Support Anvil. There's Crescendo, which will give you a Silver, Gold, and Prismatic Augment. And Decrescendo, which is the opposite, Prismatic, Gold, and Silver. There's Champion Delivery that will spawn a unit on your bench. There's Tactician's Crown, that gives you a Tactician's Crown at the beginning of the game. There's Radiant Blessing, which is Targon Prime from the last set, where if you go below 40 HP, then the game will give you some loot. There's Treasure Armory, which will bring back the Treasure Dragons at stage 4-7. There's Crab Rave, which is just Scuttle Puddle, but the crabs are dancing. There's Spatula, which gives you a spatula. There's Loot Subscription, where at the beginning of each stage, you'll get some loot. And finally, there's Wandering Trainer, which will spawn a dummy with 3 spats on everyone's board. So these portals are very powerful and very influential, which is interesting because I recall that in the learnings article at the end of set 9, they said they weren't going to have portals like this, but we have them now, so I mean, I'm not complaining. I've already had a lot of fun getting to play these on the PvE. But I think the portals that grant spats can feel very polarizing based on which ones you get. But with that out of the way, let's talk about some of the balance changes. Firstly, the true damage spat will no longer grant any bonus true damage, which is a godsend honestly. This spat was so powerful. But alongside this, the devs did a pass on most of the items and buffed the weaker ones and brought down the power of the stronger ones. Specifically, red buff, blue buff, and Shojin are getting nerfed, while other items like Morello, Bloodthirster, and Ionic Spark get more stats through attack speed, AP, and HP, respectively. I personally like this direction they're going with these items as they will now have more balanced levers. Although I am a bit worried about this Stoneplate buff because that's a lot of tankiness to a solo frontline unit. If only there was a way to bypass that type of frontline. Anyway, the other item changes are mostly just straight buffs to the stats they provide. Although I should highlight jak'sho, Runans, and Rabadons because those buffs are very significant, especially in our comp I'll show you later. But overall, these item changes should promote a lot of healthy diversity in itemization, especially in early game slams, and you won't feel nearly as bad making an early Rabadon or a jak'sho. And there's also great buffs to units that have been lackluster since set 10's launch. For example, Olaf is getting huge buffs that should allow him to properly be the carry he's intended to be. Although I still don't think Olaf will be relevant in this set for reasons I'll leave in the comments instead of going off on a rant. Kai'Sa will also be getting significant buffs to her AP and AD ratios, and Ziggs and Lucian will finally feel like 5 costs again with both buffs to their damage and bug fixes. Although I'm not sure about these buffs to Zac. I know he was slightly weak, but was he that weak that he needed a buff to his headliner bonus, ult heal, armor and MR, base HP and mana cost? 6 buffs to a single unit in one patch is wild. And with that, we should also talk about the nerfs this patch brings, or the lack thereof. Firstly, Qiyana is getting huge nerfs. Not only is her base damage going down across the board, but she'll also distribute half the amount of items at 2-star. So while this nerf is noticeable, there are others that just aren't. Like this nerf to Ahri and Sentinel. It's honestly not that substantial. I mean, there are nerfs in KDA, but again, it's not significant. Likewise, Caitlyn's also getting nerfed, but 8-bit's getting buffed. Maybe this is to discourage items like red buff on Caitlyn, but now items like Giant Slayer are just way better. Also, if they're buffing Emo and Executioner, why are they not nerfing Vex? She's already one of the best 3-cost carries, but now she just nukes everything in her way with these buffs. Similarly, these Yasuo buffs are crazy. They're buffing his passive AD scaling by 50% and giving him double the HP from his headliner bonus, and they're only sacrificing 5% Omnivamp from him. I feel like this buff to Yasuo should come with a nerf to true damage. Likewise, with Country Spout now becoming craftable, I feel as though 7 Country is too easy to hit. They've already nerfed Hecarim's ability, but what they need to nerf are his base stats and increase his scaling off star level. On the PvE, I've lost to 1-star Country boards because Hecarim comes in with like 5k HP. Also, more tweeted about a system change to streaking, which I'll link in the description. This change kills open vaulting, which is good, but now hitting the interest interval sooner is now stronger because you'll accrue more gold that way than through streaking. And this in turn means that econ augments are even stronger at 2-1 because you'll accelerate your econ tremendously. So in the next patch, I feel like clear outliers are easily Vex, Ahri, and econ augments. Okay, but with all of that in mind, I'll make some meta reads. I think Sentinel Ahri will be slightly weaker, but it's still meta because it heavily punishes players without enough armor or MR reduction. And with the buffs, Samira, Country, Emo, and Vex will become significantly more relevant, which in turn means that melee comps like reroll Yone and reroll Jak'sho will suffer due to their lack of CC immunity and burst protection. That combined with the nerfs of both EDM and Jax is enough for Jax to fall out of the meta. And despite her nerfs, any reroll will still be meta as again, Emo is stronger. And with their buffs, we should see Zac and Thresh become more common frontline. And in this patch, Yasuo will likely become meta, but I specifically think it'll be the true damage variants. And finally, I think Hyperpop will become giga broken considering how insane the buffs are and how the comp I'll show you now can abuse that. And this is that comp. Of course, you're aiming to play vertical Hyperpop, but why do you play more than one Lulu despite not having augments like Twin Terror? Well, that's because these Lulus are giving each other the Hyperpop mana and in turn casting more often and then giving each other more mana. If you combine this with units with low mana cost ults, like Ahri, then your Spellweaver units will have very little downtime between their casts, and then Spellweaver grants them stacking AP in the meantime. And both Lulu and Ziggs provide a lot of utility, as Lulu's third cast is a lot of CC, and Ziggs has innate MR shred. This comp is so stupid, and I'm more than expecting it to get nerfed, maybe even hotfixed. And in the same vein, the next comp I'll show you will probably also get nerfed, and that's Frontline Seraphine. I've been cooking this comp for a while now on my streams, but with Hextech, Gunblade, Rabadon, and jak'sho getting buffed, this comp will be at its strongest in the next patch. Now, this comp is obviously non-conventional, but it's really good. And the reasons why this comp is so good is that KDA lacks frontline, Seraphine's ult prioritizes the largest clump of units, including herself, and Seraphine casts far more often in this setup. And that's because jak'sho acts as both a tank item and a mana generation item for Seraphine, and as she tanks, she'll generate more mana. If you combine the damage from Rabadon, the sheer number of casts, the improved targeting of her ult, Seraphine's headliner bonus, and the extra healing from Hextech Gunblade, then Seraphine keeps your frontline alive because her healing is just so massive. These comps deserve their own separate videos, which I'm working on now, so make sure you subscribe for that. But with that, I will end the video. This patch is looking very promising because there are so many buffs to weak units, but I'm worried about the lack of nerfs to units like Vex and Ahri. But apparently this patch will go live when the revival of set 3.5 hits PvE, at least according to this Reddit post. So I'm a bit torn because I had some content planned, but I think I'd rather play set 3, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, what do you think about these changes in this patch? Are you looking forward to the new portals? Are you as worried as I am about Vex? And are you looking forward to the return of set 3? Let me know in the comments, and remember to subscribe. Anyway, check out these other videos if you want to see more from me, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.